I've seen this comment a lot. I want a Witcher MMO, like World of Warcraft or The Elder Scrolls Online, and honestly, I haven't given it much thought. I've always brushed off the idea because I really like the story-driven single-player games that the Witcher universe is known for. Why do we need an MMO? Well, I've been thinking about it a bit more recently and wanted to share some of the benefits and drawbacks about a Witcher MMO that I've been considering. So subscribe to the channel and like the video, and let's just enjoy exploring this idea a bit. I've decided to start this video with the positives and go over some of the benefits to a Witcher MMO, which include the idea of being able to experience a variety of different types of characters and stories in the Witcher universe, effectively a load of different paths in The Witcher. For example, being able to play as a Scoia'tael, a Witcher, a sorcerer or sorceress, a normal warrior or mercenary or government special forces member like the Blue Stripes, or maybe something like the Order of the Flaming Rose, or maybe, but I'm not sure about this, a vampire or werewolf or other Witcher monster, meaning other players could hunt you down, etc., which could be a fun concept in a kind of MMO. This could be interesting because we've only ever experienced playing as a Witcher in this universe, and seeing it from a different perspective could be quite fun. Next, we could also explore more of the Witcher's world, like Nilfgaard, Zerrikania, Kovir, Dol Blathanna, and other areas, even including areas we've already been to, but all on the same map. That would be really interesting, as we could really feel the variety that the Witcher world has to offer, and finally see a completed continent. There's even possibility for expansions in the world of the NL or other spheres, which could be a fun way to sort of do expansions. You go to different worlds and you go back and forth, and it really fits with The Witcher to do something like that. Finally, and maybe most importantly, we could explore this world and have these adventures with our friends. Imagine playing Gwent with friends in a Witcher MMO. You could bet on stuff, you could do quests together, you could just explore the world together. You know, all that lovely MMO stuff, but in The Witcher. I think that would be pretty cool. However, as much as there are some interesting benefits, I think the drawbacks outweigh them massively. Firstly, The Witcher is a strange world to have an MMO in. For me, the Witcher universe feels like a more visceral and real fantasy world, meaning it doesn't possess some of the more fantasy elements of the other more popular MMOs. For example, ESO and World of Warcraft have massive varieties of different races that really plays well to the idea of character creation. The Witcher is largely just humans, elves, which can be NL, Enshe, and dwarves. I suppose you could say halflings and I guess monsters, and I guess half-elves and merpeople, but it's really not on the same level as WoW or ESO. It's also just the general feeling of The Witcher. It's not as strong a fantasy as the others. It's a bit more of a fantasy crossed with real world. It's like, this is a kind of real world, but monsters have come into it. That's kind of how I feel about The Witcher. I also have a fear that it could change the Witcher franchise into a Elder Scrolls 6 situation with ESO. It's widely believed, at least it was a while ago, and I feel still, that ESO has slowed the development of the Elder Scrolls 6 for years, as if the Elder Scrolls 6 was released, it would have killed that game immediately, or at least taken a big part of the fanbase. So a Witcher MMO, if it was even mildly successful, could slow the development of new Witcher games, which is something no one wants. The single-player games are very important to the franchise, and I don't want to see them sidelined for some MMO. Continuing with the idea of single-player stuff, I feel that identifying with the main character is really important for The Witcher, but also understanding the character as their own person. An MMO doesn't really let you do that. You're just the champion or the hero, something like that. There's not much character there, only what you tell yourself, which is a big part of an MMO. We need to see a character like Geralt, someone that lives in the world, and we can see the world through their eyes. That's a big part of The Witcher that makes it so interesting to me and many others. I also feel that many MMO concepts can't really work in The Witcher, like the idea of mounts. It just feels weird to use anything but a horse in The Witcher. I couldn't imagine a human flying around on their own dragon or riding a bear. It just doesn't fit. It feels too fantasy for The Witcher. It's going back to that point again about the type of world The Witcher is. Riding around on a bear is cool, but a bear is a dangerous animal and The Witcher respects that. A dragon, that's a whole other thing. So a Witcher MMO would be really limited in that regard to mounts, and I feel other aspects like dungeons or raids, it just doesn't fit in that world. Having this random dungeon that you can just go in or raid, it just doesn't feel very real. Finally, I also think that having an MMO would lead to oversaturation of the franchise. Imagine having a Witcher MMO with expansions while single player games get released, and although they're no longer providing big updates for Gwen, that's still there. It's a lot of Witcher. I think it's best putting all their resources into one epic single player story and just do that one game at a time and then focus on expansions. That's enough. There doesn't need to be more. So overall, I do not want a Witcher MMO, although I do recognise the good aspects of it. I think that the negatives far outweigh the positives. But do I think a Witcher MMO will happen one day? Probably not. I think the developers can recognise that an MMO isn't something that would really fit The Witcher, and will focus on other things, mainly the single player games and their expansions, and who knows, maybe they'll make some sort of animated TV show, which would be amazing. Imagine that in the style of the cinematics, that would just be incredible. But that's it for today's video, guys, and I hope you all enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe to see more videos like this, and like to support it. Let me know any suggestions you have for future videos down in the comments below, and also tell me, do you want a Witcher MMO? Yes or no? I'm really curious about what people are going to say about that, because I feel like the answer is generally going to be no, but if people do want it, that's also pretty interesting to hear your perspective. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you all again soon.